Welcome to Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel. I'm Chris Lee, joined by Chase Robinson. We are here to preview Ole Miss's road trip to Georgia. That's 2:30 Central on ABC. Georgia about a 6.5-point favorite on FanDuel with an over-under of 53.5. As we do this, reminder, we're brought to you by Game Time Sidekicks, which offers officially licensed stainless steel drinkware. All SEC schools, over 350 other universities, stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, and shaker cups. SE16 gets you 20% off your entire order at GameTimeSidekicks.com. Also brought to you by the HOF app. Smart bettors rely on data. HOF hands you powerful analytics at your fingertips to tilt the odds in your favor, improve your chances of winning using historical data, matchup grades, trends, and player performance insights. HOF was created by Ivy League sports geeks to let everyday fans bet smarter. For a limited time only, our listeners get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use code SE16 at checkout. Just download the HOF app or on iOS or Android, enter code SE16, and you are all set. Chase, two teams coming off wins this week in different fashions. Auburn had Georgia on the ropes until the Bulldogs turned the tables late in the half and had a commanding second half performance and a win at Auburn. Meanwhile, for Ole Miss, just a very disappointing effort in a narrow win over Washington State. Nobody saw that coming. That was 32-point line. Ole Miss wins it by 3. What stands out to you about this matchup between Ole Miss and Georgia?
Yeah, Georgia has revenge on their minds coming into this game after Ole Miss defeated them last year. Georgia, though, it was a tale of two halves in Auburn on Saturday night. Georgia dominated the second half, couldn't do anything really in the first half until that final drive. So Georgia, against a team like Ole Miss, they're going to have to play a complete game. We haven't seen a lot of that from Georgia this year. I feel like they've been a second half team almost all year. And so I feel like that's something that'll need to change for Georgia. On Ole Miss side, maybe I feel like that game Saturday was just maybe a wake-up call for Ole Miss. This definitely is going to be a tough matchup for Ole Miss in different ways. But, of course, you got to like what you've seen from Ole Miss this season. So this should be a fun matchup, an entertaining game once again this year for these two.
Yeah, I think the offensive sides for both these teams are interesting. Ole Miss, of course, has got two quarterbacks. Offense has been pretty consistent. Like Ole Miss's worst offensive game in terms of points and yardage was last Saturday. And even then, Ole Miss got 24 points and 441 yards against Washington State. Kewan Lacey's running the ball really well. They've got, a tight end and Wright who's really good and several good receivers, Cayden Lee being one of them. Meanwhile, Georgia, sometimes I don't know what to think of that offense, man. You watch them and they're not dynamic at times, but then the Tennessee game where at the end of the game, Gunnar Stockton just starts dialing them up to big play receivers. They get the play from London Humphries, who feels like he's been a bigger part of things at important times for them lately. They've run the ball pretty well, pretty consistently in most of these games. Two offenses that go about it different ways. And Ole Miss is, I think Ole Miss's offense has a bigger upside. But Georgia's has been pretty consistent. And even in the Auburn game where they were awful the first 29 minutes, were really good the second half against a really good Auburn defense.
Yeah, and I feel like Georgia's offense was challenged more in that first half, the way DJ Durkin was dialing things up defensively. And Kirby Smart even said as much in his post-game press conference that Auburn was bringing things at them that they did not prepare for. And that's not something you hear Kirby Smart say much. Like he preps, man. He has his team ready. And they weren't in some spots on Saturday night. So I feel like what we saw Georgia do offensively in that second half, just really grind it out and make some big plays. And Gunnar Stockton really came into himself, especially in that second half. And that's what they need Saturday against Ole Miss. Like They have got to play their game, be able to grind it out, get guys going, let Gunnar Stockton sit back and do his thing. Because I feel like when he settles into a game is when we see him at his best, dial up some great things offensively. And so I think that can be something that Georgia needs to have all game is Gunnar Stockton dial it in. But if you're Ole Miss and your Ole Miss defense, take what you saw Auburn do in the first half and some of the pressures that they brought on Gunnar Stockton and make him work for that again this week.
Yeah, let's talk defenses for just a minute. Ole Miss's, I think that was one of the concerns coming into the season, and really Ole Miss has been, I guess, okay. Some of these are the stats are maybe padded by playing offenses that weren't as good as we thought, but the first 5 games, Ole Miss high watermark that it gives up per play, 5.1 against Kentucky on the road. And a team that just for whatever reason has been trouble for them to match up with. Leaked a lot against Washington State, gave up 6.5 yards a play, although not on the field that often, just 53 plays. Georgia's defense, I know it's not the Jordan Davis and some of those guys like they've had, but been pretty sneakily good, I think, because you look at some of the offenses they faced Tennessee, they faced Alabama, gave up some of the damage in that one. Other 4 games against Marshall, Austin Peay, Kentucky, Auburn, pretty good, although not great offenses. But Georgia allowing 4.8 yards per play. And I think when we talk about this with Alabama, one thing Georgia does when it's playing well, it just can out-snap you a little bit. So I think this could turn into a ball control thing, which might turn your attention on who can stop the other team's running game. And the numbers for Georgia, they are getting a little bit under 5 yards per rushing play. That's kind of disappointing for the kind of talent that Kirby Smart usually gets. As for Ole Miss, the run defense, not been great. They're giving up 5.5 yards per carry, sack adjusted. So that might be a thing if you're looking for like an edge in this matchup. Georgia's ability to run the ball might be something you take a look at.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at again, how they've been able to run the ball 1,013 or 1,113 on the ground. Bowens, Frazier, Stockton can run it. If they're able to get those guys out in open field, then that could be a big turning point for Georgia there. So, and they haven't always been able to get those guys going, but they are at their best when that run game is clicking.
Yeah, I think this could turn into like a big play game, whoever can generate the most. And you've seen both teams do that at times too.
You have, and I think it really could come down to that. And I think the way these offenses are, there's big play potential. That's kind of how the players on the field, there's potential for big play. Both quarterbacks have a good arm. They can get it out there. So that most certainly could be a factor in this game of who can get the big play or the most big plays. But again, I think Ole Miss definitely is built that way. And I think Georgia is built that way as well. Where these offenses, they've got the weapons to have the big plays.
Do you have another thing or two you're circling in this matchup to watch? Because I've got 2 more.
Well, I think on that point is which defense can limit the big play, because if both teams can do that, which they can, Georgia's defense has been exploited at times for giving up some big pass plays. So is that what Lane Kiffin's going to dial up quickly off the bat? Like, are we going to see a big pass play? Let's get into Georgia's secondary quickly and move it down the field that way on the first couple of drives. I think we could see that because, again, Georgia has given up some big plays that way. And so I'm curious to see how the first couple of drives for Ole Miss is scripted of how they can exploit the secondary of Georgia.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, I guess Georgia's worst game against pass defense was Tennessee. They gave up almost 10 yards per attempt, even if you include sacks in that. But that's also an atmosphere where like it's deafening and you can't hear yourself think. And, still early in the season that they got better. Like they only allowed under 7 yards of pass play against Alabama, which isn't great, but it's not bad, especially when you consider what Alabama's got. Now, pass defense was really good against Kentucky and Auburn, but those are also the two worst passing offenses in the league. So kind of feels like when Georgia's played mediocre passing teams, the effort's been good. When it played a team that can be pretty elite at it, well, with the Alabama game, the exception. I think you do that to Alabama, you're happy. But the Tennessee game was kind of eye-opening, but I think that was a different atmosphere. So maybe it's a case where we come out of this game, you say that was the explanation. They did really well holding Ole Miss down. Maybe we'll come out of the game just saying, hey, Georgia cannot stop really good athletes and good passing attacks. I don't know how that one ends. I think, to me, two things, okay? Last time Georgia played at home, it got beat by Alabama. Georgia had not lost in that building since 2019. I'm not saying Georgia fans have gotten complacent, but when you take winning for granted at that level, that's a factor. You got a revenge game on the horizon. So, like, what is the atmosphere like? How much trouble does Ole Miss have just hearing itself think? And then special teams. Georgia, according to SP Plus, has the best special teams unit in the country. They've got good return guys. Brett Thorson, Peyton Woodring are both, All-American level players at their position. So those are two more things I'm going to keep an eye on, Chase.
Yeah, and those are those two things could definitely play a factor. I think special teams certainly could in a game like this where you have two teams that are similar in some ways.
Yeah, let's go to picks, and I'll get to you first. And then after that, I want to get your input on what type of game you think this will be in terms of scoring. But let's just get your outright pick first.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this one. I'm going to take Georgia at home winning this one. I think it's going to be very close. I think special teams could play a factor, maybe a field goal, but I think Georgia wins this one at home. And Ole Miss, though, is going to challenge them in so many different ways. And I think
Yeah,
this would be a game that we see come down to the wire, but Georgia wins it.
yeah, I'm with you. I think I would take the home team. Like if this were in Oxford, I think I'd probably take Ole Miss. It's in Athens. I mean, the last time out, aside, winning in your building 6 years in a row against anybody and everybody in this league is impressive. You got the motivational factor from Kirby Smart, I think, there. And you got the fact that Georgia was up against it a week ago. Not that Ole Miss wasn't in its own way, but answered the bell in a place that was getting pretty loud and deafening. I'll take Georgia in this one. I want to get your opinion on the total in just a minute. The over-under on this one is 53.5, which feels a little low for any game that Ole Miss is playing in. But again, Ole Miss not played a defense like this one either, I don't think. So before we go there, just a reminder, we're brought to you by Yearly Company, which is a Nashville-based jewelry brand built on tradition, designed for meaning. Each piece is handcrafted from 14-karat gold and natural gemstones, made to measure for a perfect fit, backed by a lifetime guarantee. Because every Yearly Company bangle is custom sized, knowing your size is the most important first step before ordering. That's where the sizing kit comes in. It's the perfect place to start, especially for husbands who want to have sizes ready now. So shopping closer to the holidays is effortless. Code SE16KIT, KIT, will take 100% off your sizing kit at checkout. Also brought to you by Rockform, my favorite phone case. Rockform's phone cases are just unbelievable. They make the world's strongest magnetic phone case, extreme protection, super strong magnets, rock lock secure mounting. This is the busiest time of the year with the new iPhone release. SEC 25 gets you 25% off your entire order. Also brought to you by Hovey Dry Goods, which makes my favorite Titans hat. It'll be your new favorite hat, too. Look no further than Hovey hats for high-quality headwear with a great fit and unique designs. Bad Beat, BAD-BEAT, gets you 15% off your entire order. Chase, opinions on the over-under?
Yeah, I think I think there's going to be points scored this one with 53.5 being the over-under. I would probably lean towards over that. I think both teams can score. They will score. I think Ole Miss is going to make Georgia's defense stop them. And so I think they're going to try to have some big plays. I do think Georgia can score as well, and I think they will. And so I think this will be a higher scoring game.
I'm going to go the other way. Total points in the last 3 Georgia games against Alabama, 45, Kentucky, 49, Auburn, 30. Now, look, 2 of those involve bad offenses. I get it. But Ole Miss, too, has kind of quietly started playing a different type of game. 24-19 against LSU, a defense I think is pretty similar to the one Georgia's got in terms of effectiveness, maybe not style, but effectiveness. And even, 45 points last week against Washington State, which is awful defensively, but getting better. And maybe that's an outlier. Maybe that was just, hey, they're looking ahead to this one. Could be as simple as that. But I'll take the under in this one in a league that's really got some very, very good defenses. All right, we'll be back to talk about this one when it's over. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and enable notifications so you get our stuff, and give us a rating where you get us on audio too. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you. Thank you for watching. This is Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel.